All right, let's talk about a chapter that, let's be honest, a lot of us might just skim through. Leviticus. But buried in the middle of it is chapter 19, and it is an absolute gem. It's often called the Holiness Code, and I'm telling you, it gives us this incredible, practical picture of what it actually looks like to live a life that reflects God. So let's just dive right in.
So right out of the gate, the whole chapter kicks off with this massive foundational command. This isn't just some friendly suggestion, It's the thesis statement for everything else we're about to read. Every single law, every instruction, it all comes back to this one point. You might ask, why all these rules? Well, the answer is right here, because the God they serve is holy. And so their lives, our lives, are meant to be a mirror, a reflection of his character.
Okay, so we're looking at a foundation of holiness. And it's so important to get this. Leviticus 19 is not just a random jumble of do's and don'ts. Think of it more like a blueprint. It's a really practical, day-to-day guide for what holiness actually looks like when you're walking it out. With your family, in your neighborhood, deep down in your own heart. It's all about translating God's very nature into our human actions. Now, the chapter kind of breaks us down into two main areas. The first one is what you could call the vertical relationship. It's all about honoring God, our direct personal relationship with Him. So how does a holy person actually relate to their Creator?
And this is really interesting because it shows you the two sides of the same coin when it comes to devotion. On one hand, you've got these positive commands, things like honoring your father and mother, keeping the Sabbaths. It's about actively revering God. But then on the other hand, you have the negative commands. Don't turn to idols. Don't seek mediums. It's about intentionally rejecting anything that tries to take God's place. It's a package deal, right? True worship means embracing God fully and, at the same time, turning your back on anything that competes with Him.
And you'll notice something as you read through this chapter. Woven into all these commands, you see this phrase again and again and again. It's almost like God's personal signature at the end of each law. He's reminding them, hey, this isn't just an arbitrary rule. This is a command from the one who made you, the one who rescued you, the one who has every right to guide your life. So our obedience, it's not just about rule following. It's a response to who He is.
Okay, so after setting the foundation for that vertical relationship with Him, God immediately pivots. He turns to the horizontal, how we treat each other. And honestly, most of this chapter is dedicated to this very thing, which just goes to show you how much our relationships with other people matter to God.
And just look at how down-to-earth this stuff is. This is not some high-minded, abstract philosophy. No, it's about leaving the corners of your field so the poor have something to eat. It's about paying your worker his wages before the sun goes down because you know he needs that money for his family that night. It's about protecting the most vulnerable people in society, not cursing the deaf, not putting a stumbling block in front of the blind. It's about being fair in court. You can just feel God's heart for justice and compassion for real people in these verses.
So as you're reading through all these very specific commands, about being honest, having integrity, showing compassion, you start to wonder, right? Is there one big idea that ties all of this together? A single principle that's holding up this entire vision for how we should live with each other?
Well, yeah, there is, and here it is. This verse, this is the absolute peak of the chapter. It's the golden thread weaving through every single one of those commands about how to treat people. Why shouldn't you steal from your neighbor? Because you're supposed to love him as you love yourself. Why shouldn't you deceive her? Same reason, you love her as yourself. See, this one command just completely transforms the law from a dry list of rules into a dynamic relationship of love. And then, what does God do? He signs it right at the end. I am the Lord.
And you really can't overstate how important this one verse is. I mean, think about it. Centuries later, Jesus himself is asked to boil down the entire law into its most important parts. And what does he do? He points to two commands. First, love God. And second, this exact verse from Leviticus 19, love your neighbor as yourself. It's just a beautiful reminder of the consistent, unchanging heart of God, all the way from the Old Testament straight into the New.
So that brings us to a life set apart. And let's be real, we have to talk about some of the laws in this chapter that can feel a little strange to us today, right? The laws about not mixing seeds in the field or not wearing clothes made of two different kinds of fabric. You read that and you think, okay, what on earth is that about?
Well, to get it, we have to circle back to that key word for the whole chapter, holiness. The original Hebrew word, kadosh, it literally means to be set apart or distinct. God was calling His people, Israel, to be different, to be unique from all the cultures around them in a way that would make people stop and ask, hey, why do you live like that? What's different about you?
And that's where these strange laws come in.
Think of them as real-life, everyday object lessons. They were physical reminders. So every time a farmer went out to plant his field or a woman was weaving cloths, these rules were there to remind them, we belong to God. We are a distinct people, unmixed, set apart for Him. They were visible signs pointing to a much deeper spiritual reality.
Okay, so let's bring it all home. Why does any of this matter to us today? I mean, we're not ancient Israelites living in that specific time and place, but the principles in this chapter are absolutely timeless because they reveal the very heart of the God we still worship.
And if there's one thing you take away from this, let it be this. The law isn't just a list of arbitrary rules. It's more like a portrait of God's character. He is just, so He commands us to be just. He is loving, so He commands us to love. He is holy, set apart, pure, and so He invites us, His people, to reflect that same character to the world.
And that really just leaves us with a challenge, doesn't it? The specific rules about farming or fabrics might not apply to us in the same way, but the heart behind them, that hasn't changed one bit. So the question for us is, how can we, right now, in our lives, practice that kind of radical justice for the people who are vulnerable? How can we actually love our neighbors as ourselves, at work, in our communities? And in what ways is God calling us to be holy, to be set apart for Him in this generation? It's a question that's just as powerful and just as urgent for us today as it was all those thousands of years ago.